Hi, my name is Jake, and I am a bookish drummer. So this video will be my official bookshelf tour. It is for anyone interested in my channel, just to give them kind of an overarching look at what types of books I read, who some of my favorite authors are, what I'm interested to read in the future, and just to give an overall impression on what types of books I like to read in general. I will talk about the random things on top of my shelves towards the end of the video, but for now, let's just jump right into the books. So this first shelf is dedicated to all of my A Song of Ice and Fire related books. George R. R. Martin is my favorite author, and A Song of Ice and Fire is my favorite series of all time. And there's little Funko George there. Say hello. And these two books, Dream Songs Volume 1 and 2, are actually a collection of some of his best short stories and novellas from before he wrote A Song of Ice and Fire, back in the 70s and 80s. I highly recommend them. Speaking of which, these are all of George R. R. Martin's other works besides A Song of Ice and Fire. I haven't quite read every single book on this shelf, but I can safely tell you that I've loved everything that he's written that I've read so far. If I could recommend you two books to try out, one of them would be Tough Voyaging, and one of them would be Fever Dream. Tough Voyaging is about a guy named Haviland Tuff who gets his hands on an ecological spaceship and travels around space, going to different planets and affecting their ecosystems in very strange ways. This is definitely different in tone than A Song of Ice and Fire. It's a lot lighter in tone, more playful. So anyone who doesn't like, like A Song of Ice and Fire's kind of grim, dark tone, Tough Voyaging might be a better option for you. And Fever Dream is his kind of weird vampire novel. It takes place in the 1860s, I believe, in the Deep South on a steamboat. And that's all you need to know. Go read it. It's really good. And this shelf is a mix of fantasy and sci-fi books. Some of them I have read, some of them I have not. Some of the series in here I've started but not finished. I'll go into more detail. I've read Senilina Sins, very good book. I have not yet read its sequel, Armed with the Sphinx. The Arithmetist, very good middle grade, young adult kind of Brandon Sanderson book. 12 Kings and Cherokee is a very good, very underrated fantasy book. I still need to read the sequels. The Farseer trilogy, I really like the first two books. Back when I read the third book, I did not enjoy it, but I do plan on rereading it and seeing if my opinion changes. And then this is the Michael J. Sullivan's Legend of First Empire. I have the first 5 books, but I've actually only read the first one. I really enjoyed the first one, and now I need to, read all of these. And I've read Children of Time, which is a very strange, very unique sci-fi book. It has giant spiders in it, so if you're into that, I have not read the sequel yet, but I do plan on doing that soon. And Dune, I've actually read before. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I do plan on picking it up again soon. And Semiosis is a very good, very underrated sci-fi book. It actually has a similar premise to Children of Time, but I think it's told in a more unique way. And instead of giant spiders, it's sentient plants. So if you're into that. And this shelf is a bunch of random fantasy and sci-fi books that I have not read yet. This book actually just came in the mail. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. Sephiroth's Hand. I've actually tried to read this book before, but it was on Kindle, and I'm not really a huge fan of Kindle. But now I have the paperback copy, so we'll see how it goes. It's a thick one. And then down here are the Lonely Classics. I've really only read a few of these, from Catcher in the Rye all the way to The Picture of Dorian Gray. Everything else on this side I have not read. Will I ever read them? Hopefully, but probably not. And up here we have two of my favorite mystery writers, Agatha Christie and Lisa Jewell. All of these Agatha Christie books are the ones that I have read. I think it's about 40, give or take, but she's obviously one of my favorite authors. I don't love every single book she's written, but for the most part, I do really enjoy them. Honestly, the only really books that I don't like by her are her short story collections. I much prefer her novels. And these are all of the Lisa Jewell books that I've read so far. She's quickly becoming one of my favorite authors. Fun fact, this is only 6 books, but I've given all of her books 5 stars so far. So, that's good. And this shelf is dedicated to most of my favorite fantasy and sci-fi series. This is the Gentleman Bastard series, with the first book being Lies of Locke Lamora, one of my favorite books of all time. Eagerly awaiting for the 4th book. And then this is the Witcher series, which I will be rereading this year. And then this is my favorite sci-fi series of all time, The Themis Files. Probably, this might be crazy to say, but probably my favorite trilogy of all time. Maybe I need to rethink that, but I'm pretty positive that's what I'm going to go with. And then City of Stairs, another one of my favorite fantasy books. I really need to read the sequels. And then Kings of the Wild, fantastic. I love all of the classic rock references, and I really need to read the sequel, Bloody Rose. And this is the Poppy War series. I'm currently reading or rereading the Poppy War, and then next month I'll be rereading Dragon Republic, and then eventually reading The Burning God, which I am super pumped for. And this is my Brandon Sanderson shelf, or to put it more precisely, my Cosmere shelf. Ignore the Puma. I'm sure most people on BookTube are familiar with Brandon Sanderson, but for anyone who's not, these are his 2 standalone books. This is these 2 are his standalones, and then these 3 are the original Mistborn trilogy, and then this is the Second Era. And then Arcanum Unbounded is his kind of short story and novella collection that all take place in the Cosmere. And then this is really why I love Brandon Sanderson, is Stormlight Archive. I'm currently rereading the 3rd book in anticipation to read Rhythm of War, which I could not be more excited for. If all goes according to plan and I do finish Oathbringer this month, then next month I will read Rhythm of War. And I always tell myself that I'm going to try to read it slowly, to not read it too fast because, you know, the fifth book's probably not going to come out for 3 years, but I'm going to end up binging it. Like, there's no way. And this shelf contains all of my unread Agatha Christie books. Not too much to say, so we'll just go to the next shelf. And down here are a mix of mysteries and thrillers that either I've read or that I am very interested to read. I think most of my read ones are down here. Yeah. Behind Her Eyes is very good. Behind Closed Doors is great. Gillian Flynn. And then I have 3 more Lisa Jewell books that I own that I really want to read. Also, The Couple Next Door is insane. You should read it. Up here we have my Ray Bradbury collection, another one of my favorite authors. A lot of people only know Ray Bradbury because of Fahrenheit 451, but obviously he's written much more than that. I think he is the king of short stories. I love his short story collections, and honestly, like, most of these books are short story collections. A lot of these books are sadly out of print, but I did manage to find them either online or at used bookstores or thrift stores. Probably my favorite of his collections, and probably his most famous, is The Illustrated Man. I loved all of the short stories in this collection. If you wanted to try out something maybe more underrated by Ray Bradbury, maybe Driving Blind is a very good short story collection. And also One More for the Road. Great cover. I definitely think everyone should give Ray Bradbury a chance, especially if you appreciate good short storytelling. If you're not a very big fan of short stories, he might not be the author for you. But if you are, I couldn't recommend him enough. This next shelf contains all of my Haruki Murakami fiction, as well as my Dan Wells books. Haruki Murakami has quickly become one of my favorite authors of all time. I've never quite read an author that tells a story like him. I've only read about 6, maybe 7 of his books, but they've all been 4 or 5-star reads for me. For my money, I think his best work is Hard-Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World. Also, if you're an audiophile like me, Kirby Hayborn does the audiobook for this. He's one of my all-time favorite audiobook narrators. Speaking of Kirby Hayborn, we have Dan Wells's John Cleaver series, with the first book being I Am Not a Serial Killer. Great title for a first book. And Kirby Hayborn actually narrates all of the 6 books in the series, and he does a fantastic job. And these 2 books over here are his standalones. They're not quite as good as the John Cleaver series, but they are still pretty good. And this shelf contains all of my Michael Crichton books. I have read most of these. A few of these, I think more towards this side, I have not read, but I've pretty much enjoyed everything he's written. Although I wouldn't say any of these books are like all-time favorite books, but most of them are definitely worth reading. And this next shelf is kind of my miscellaneous shelf. So on this side, we kind of have an assortment of young adult and middle grade books. We randomly have a Lisa Jewell romance book, which I might try, but I don't know. And then we have a random assortment of either just general fiction or historical fiction. And then closer on this side, if I can actually get back there, we have a few nonfiction books. I don't know if you could guess about which book happens to be one of my all-time favorite books. Is it The Fault in Our Stars? No, it's this book. Drums, Girls, and Dangerous Pie. Excellent, excellent book. I read this in middle school, and I've reread it at many different stages in my life. And it's meant something different to me every time I've read it. It's incredible. I want everyone to go read it. And this bottom shelf is all of my really old beat up copies of Harry Potter. And then on this side are some of my dad's books. My dad was a huge Kurt Vonnegut fan, and he was actually a very big Hunger Games fan. Funny enough, he actually read the second book, not knowing that it wasn't the first book, and he loved it anyway, and loved the rest of the series. And this is my Stephen King / horror bookshelf. These are all of the Stephen King books that I own. I'm pretty sure I own all of them at this point. And then at that bottom shelf are a random assortment of horror books. This is the top shelf of the Stephen King shelf. Over here we have all of the Dark Tower books. And then down here we have all of his short story and novella collections. And then on top of those we have a random assortment of nonfiction and screenplay, and then two of his shorter works. This is the next shelf, and over here we have all of his Richard Bachman books. And then starting with Carrie, these are all of his novels in publication order. So we go down, there's Carrie, and it ends with It. And we have Misery, which goes all the way to Dreamcatcher. Terrible book. And then down here, these are some of his newer books. Like I said in my previous video, I'm a huge fan of Stephen King, and I do plan on making lots of Stephen King content because I have a lot of opinions when it comes to this man. And down here at our last shelf, we have a random assortment of horror and suspense books. That's my little Dean Koontz corner. I've read about half of those. I think those are the ones on top. And then some of these I have read, some of these I have not. If I had to choose a favorite, it would probably be this one, Baby Teeth. It's about a sadistic little girl who likes to torture her mom, and no one believes the mom, and it's incredible. It's awesome. And I'll quickly run through some of these random items on the top of my shelf. That is a Cam Newton lawn gnome, don't ask. There is a tiny cat. There is my best man flask that my brother gave to me. That is a pyramid that I made in elementary school, Illuminati confirmed. There is a postal service truck. I work for the post office. There is a Rick and Morty wallet, which was too small. And I've got some Seahawks merch. I'm a huge Seattle Seahawks fan. This is one of my favorite pictures. It's me and my brother when we were younger, playing in the snow with my dog Sandy. Those are my reading copies of the first 3 books of A Song of Ice and Fire, and some random stuffed animals. There's some old snare drum heads from when I was in marching band in high school. And then those are some of my favorite rock albums. Led Zeppelin 1, Led Zeppelin 3, and Asia by Steely Dan. Hopefully this video doesn't turn out to be too long, but if it is and you manage to stick around to the end, thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, please hit the like button, and if you're interested in me talking about any of these books in the future, please consider subscribing. Thank you so much, and have a great day.